Hello, I'm Gary Stearman of Prophecy Watchers, and with me is a man whom I greatly respect. His name is Olivier Melnick, and he is a very prolific writer on the subject of anti-Semitism, which is a very, very, should we say, happening sort of subject right now. Every time you pick up the paper, every time you look at a magazine, every time you turn on the television, there is a new story on anti-Semitism. Olivier, what is your reaction to this?
Well, Gary, thank you for having me on the show again. Appreciate the invitation. Yes, it is a very, very current problem that is most likely going to get a little worse before it gets better. And this is something that is really close to me, very personal. Going back to my youth, when I was born and raised in France in a Jewish family, lost my grandfather in Auschwitz. This is real to me. The topic of anti-Semitism, and I started looking into it when I was finishing a degree at Moody Bible Institute in 2000. I was working on a degree there. So you're looking at 25 years ago when I started telling people from my research. What I understand is that it's going to get worse and worse and worse, and Jewish people are going to be in danger for their lives, and most of the world is going to turn its back on the Jews. And people back 25 years ago look at me going like, Olivier, you're exaggerating a little bit. I mean, seriously, it can't be that bad. I mean, the Jewish people really went through a terrible time during the Holocaust, and this is not going to be happening again. And I thought, well, if you read your Bible, we have promises from God that the whole world is going to turn against the Jews in Zechariah 12:3. All the whole world, including every country, including America. And so I continued my research coming to where we are today, 25 years later. And as much as I wish I was wrong, I'm having a I told you so moment. Like you just mentioned, Gary, every single day on just about any station, it doesn't matter if they're left or right, we hear about anti-Semitism, more from the conservative side because they report it. The other side tries to brush it off or spin it. But every single day we hear things and we see things. And let me start by giving my definition of anti-Semitism so that people can understand what we're talking about here. Anti-Semitism is the irrational and demonic hatred of the Jewish people in Israel, characterized by thoughts, words, and or deeds. And Gary, thoughts and words were what we were getting up to recently, but thoughts lead to words and words lead to actions. And we've seen the actions. We've seen the words of globalize the Intifada come out from people since October 7th. And now we see this kid from Chicago, this Hispanic kid from Chicago, go to a museum in D.C. and kill 2 Israeli diplomats, screaming, "Free Gaza, globalize the Intifada." So now those words have become actions. That's where we are, Gary. And to me, that is very concerning.
75 years ago in Germany. I would like for you to comment on something that has, I guess to use the the vernacular, it has blown me away to see what's happening on major college campuses in the United States of America. They are wearing the clothing of those who are anti-Semitic to the core. They are marching around unimpeded, and more, I guess, college students, even high school students, are now picking up this theme. What's going on?
Well, they are, the college students have been indoctrinated by liberal left professors for several decades now. And what started in the early 60s as a new twist on anti-Semitism, a new twist on the Middle East, where basically the Russians position Yasser Arafat into the Middle East, a Palestinian who, by the way, was born in Egypt, just for the record, because there's no such thing as a Palestinian. This is an invented people. And Yasser Arafat started to promote an agenda of displaced people, colonization, occupation, Jewish people trying to commit genocide on the poor Palestinians. And at the beginning, it was not really adopted by many, and they thought it was a little out there. But eventually, like I think it's either Goebbels or Hitler who said, if you tell a lie long enough, it will become truth. And I'm paraphrasing here. So eventually, this lie about the Palestinian people became a reality in the mind of people. The youth being indoctrinated by college professors are finding that this Palestinian people seems like the underdog, and they are very attracted by social justice. And and so the youth is looking at this Palestinian cause as a good cause, and they are chanting from the river to the sea, Palestine shall be free. They would not be, you'd ask him to define Palestine, they wouldn't be able to define it or give you the history of the word Palestine.
Yeah, or from the river to the sea. What does that really mean?
Well, from the river Jordan to the sea, the Mediterranean, basically, that is a genocidal call. They don't even know that. That is a genocide. It's basically from east to west, north to south. All of Israel is Palestine, and it shall be free of Jews. That's what they're saying. They don't even know they're saying that. I mean, some do, but the vast majority of the youth, they don't have a clue. It sounds cool, it sounds trendy, and it sounds like it's promoting social justice, so they just run with it.
And I would quickly add, it is backed by Satan. I believe that there's a satanic element to all this that's giving this from the background, empowering these things that are happening. And Satan has tried to kill the Jews how many times in how many ways? All you have to do is read your Bible, and then come right up to the present day.
From the beginning, and I'm glad you mentioned that, Gary, because the satanic or demonic aspect component of anti-Semitism is key to not only understanding it, but also fighting it properly, because this is a spiritual battle that Christians are in. If they want to make a difference against anti-Semitism, they need to understand it's coming from Satan. Now, the question some people might have is, why is Satan so, pardon my French or the pun, so hell bent on killing the Jews?
Yes.
That is because Satan knows the Bible better than anybody that I know. He knows his Bible very well, and he knows that at the end of God's program, I believe, by the way, that there's going to be a rapture of the church, a physical rapture of the believers in the near future. We don't know exactly what day, but we know it's coming starting today forward at some point. And then after that, there's going to be a 7-year tribulation, and the Jewish people are going to suffer greatly because, according to Zechariah 13:8 and 9, 13:9 and 10, I believe, the Jewish people are going to lose 2/3 of their people. 1/3 will survive, and that's tragic. That's more than the Holocaust. That's another great Holocaust, more than the previous one. But at the end of the tribulation, the Jews who survive are going to finally get together and corporately go like, guys, we missed it. Our forefathers missed Yeshua, Jesus, when he came at his first coming. He is the Messiah of Israel and the Savior of the world. And we missed him, we rejected him. And they're going to say, Baruch haba b'Shem Adonai, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. That's what triggers the second coming of Jesus. And that's also what pushes Satan out of a job. And he doesn't like where he's going to be retiring. So Satan wants to stop that from happening. And that is why anti-Semitism is from Satan, because he created it to push the Jews away from Jesus and to even put the church in a place where they're thinking that they're replacing Israel, replacing the Jews. It's satanic.
Wow. I would like for you to comment on this book, of course, written by you, Olivier Melnick, The Normalization of Antisemitism, and the subtitle is When the Oldest Hatred Becomes the New Normal. I've read the book, by the way, and I was pulled along. It's very compelling to read about what's happening Uh, but it's very difficult to describe, I think, to people who are not familiar with the subject. It's much bigger than you might think.
Yes. What's interesting about this book in retrospect, it came out in 2023, the same year that the attack by Hamas took place in Israel, when the 1,200 innocent Israelis were slaughtered by Hamas, the largest killing of Jews in one day since the Holocaust. And when I wrote the book, it came out, I believe, in March or April of 2023. And why I'm saying this is because in the book, I make a case. I talk about 10 different stages in a normalization. And if I may, I just want to read each one of
Sure.
them briefly. Apathy, lack of education, desensitization, low or incorrect reporting, no accountability, empowerment, demonization of the defenders, increased persecution of Jews and defenders, encouragement to kill, and mass murder of Jews. That's all 10. And I make the case in the book. I said, all first 9 are in place. The only one that we haven't seen yet is mass murder of Jews. That was published 4 months before October 7th. So I could, and I should make a revised version of this book saying all 10 are in place now. The they don't necessarily build upon each other. Sometimes they overlap. Sometimes they continue parallel. But you see a lot of apathy and desensitization. People don't care. It's not in their neighborhood. They don't know anybody Jewish. What people need to understand is that those who go after the Jews, you often say first the Saturday people, then the Sunday people. Those who go after the Jews will most likely go after the Christians next.
It has happened before.
It has happened before, exactly. And so we're seeing this normalization where you could see that maybe the second point in the book, the lack of education, is a big reason why people are not interested. They're apathetic. They're desensitized. Is because people are not hearing about history or not caring about history. I mean, our youth. It's pathetic how they get their information now. If it's not contained in a less than 1 minute TikTok video, they just don't care.
That's true. Now, continuing with the normalization of anti-Semitism, the fact is interesting that we are now rising out of the ordinary society, college level, the daily newspaper, the daily news. We're rising up to the level of power politics in the United States of America. There is anti-Semitism in our Congress. Our president is traveling as we're talking right now, and he's traveled to Europe. And guess what the subject is? The subject is anti-Semitism on the heels of the recent bombing in Iran. And he's receiving great criticism, and there are people who are trying to implicate him in being too close to the Jews or being too close to Jewish power. And if you listen very carefully, you can hear people trying to link Donald Trump to too much, shall we say, interaction with the Jewish society, with Jewish politics. Bibi Netanyahu and Donald Trump are good friends, which is not a feather in his cap. Basically, the world is looking at him and saying, "You're friends with who?" And I think we can just see so many elements of anti-Semitism as we look around today.
Yeah, it's I would call this state anti-Semitism, coming from from the highest level, of government, and that is an issue. One of the biggest lies about the Jewish people that continues to this day is this idea that Jewish people want to control the world. They
Yes.
want to take over the world, and this goes back. At least 120, 25 years. It's in 1904 there was a booklet that came out that was it was recognized within a decade or so as a hoax, known as the Protocols of the Learned Elders of Zion. And
Yes.
it was a plagiarism of a couple of authors that worked on some plays out of France, even before that, and that was plagiarized into this booklet that was supposed to be the minutes of the first Zionist Congress of 1896 that took place in Basel, Switzerland, and that was written by that little booklet was compiled. Not really written because he plagiarized the whole thing, but was compiled by Sergei Nilus, a Russian mystic. And if people look into it, they find out that the Protocols of the Elders of Zion is used to this day as the proof that the Jews are here to control the world. This little booklet was the minutes of this cabal of Jews trying to organize in Switzerland. So how can we control the world, the banks, the government, and education and entertainment, everything we can control, so we can take over the whole world. This is a lie, of course, and but it's pushed and still used a lot in the Middle East. It was used by Henry Ford in 1930s. He published the protocols in little episodes in his newspaper, the Dearborn Independent, until he was sued and he had to retract the whole thing. But so this is a book that has been very instrumental in forming this and continuing and maintaining this idea that Jewish people are only interested in controlling the banks, controlling the money, controlling the world. And now you fast forward to today, you've got a man who just hours ago went through the New York mayor primaries, and his name, I don't want to mispronounce his name is Zoran Mamdani. And by his own admitting, and I don't really know how that works, maybe Gary, you do, he is a Muslim socialist. I don't know you could put those two words in the same sentence, but anyway, that's not what worries me. I mean, his socialist agenda is not going to work because never has. Socialism and communism and Marxism have never worked. But that's not what worries me. What worries me is that the guy is an open, blatant anti-Semite. New York is the largest concentration, the largest Jewish community in the U.S. And here's a man who won by, I think, 43%, and then Cuomo was like 36%. So he's going to be, Cuomo conceded, he's going to be the guy running for mayor in New York. And if he gets it, it's a guy who promotes views like globalize the Intifada, which led to the murder of Israeli diplomats in D.C. about a month ago.
I have a question for you on the heels of your comment there. Going back to Germany in the 30s, people have looked back. There have been dozens of books written about what happened. But there's always the question, why did the Jews so willingly allow the Nazis to do what they did? And then you fast forward to our day, and it looks like the whole thing is repeating itself, and the Jews are not, if you will, being as resistant as you might like to see them be. In other words, they're allowing themselves to be pushed around. Why does that happen?
Gary, when I talked to my dad about those things when he was still alive, in my younger years, my mother saw her father taken by the Gestapo to be taken to a place of gathering in Paris, and then to be put on a train sent to Auschwitz, and he died there. When I talked to my dad, he told me stories about his dad who fought in the First World War, 1914, 1918, and he said his dad was as French as they came, as French as they come, yet Jewish, of course. And when the government said, bring your bicycles to the police station where you live because we want to control how you're going to be moving around, he just said, well, that's what they want. We have to obey the law. When they said, bring your transistor radio set so you won't be able to listen to the allies out of London, they just did. They said, well, this is what we have to do. This is our government telling us what to do. And parallel to that, people were starting to get stories about what's happening in the East, the concentration camps, the forced labor camps, and eventually down the road, the extermination camps. They said, no human being could possibly do what is being described to another human being. And yet they were wrong. 6 million Jews 12 million people total, but 6 million Jews died in the Holocaust. And right now we have again people being in denial, thinking it's not possible they would happen, and yet it's slowly incrementally getting to the place where they're going to be killing more Jews. And my fear, Gary, is that back in the days of the Holocaust era, it's not so much the Jews who were in denial and could not believe that such a tragedy could happen to our own people. What worries me is another group of people, the bystanders. The bystanders of the Holocaust, the people who looked the other way when the Jewish people were put on trains and gone through their villages and they knew exactly what was going on. So, I can't get involved in that. It's just too much. I can't make a difference. So the many, many millions of bystanders who have allowed that to happen, I am praying that Christians today would choose not to be the new bystanders of the 21st century, but they would become more like the righteous among the nations of the 21st century, those who are going to make a difference to help Jews and rescue and shelter Jews in time of need, which we are very, very rapidly approaching.
Today, there is, as I mentioned earlier, a kind of a close relationship between Bibi Netanyahu and Donald Trump, which I find very, very encouraging, given what's happening right now. However, to back up what you just said, there's an undercurrent of anti-Semitism. And I assume in your new book, which is going to be coming out, and we should talk about that, by the way, you are going to be publishing a new book, Anti-Semitism in the End Times. And that book is needed, I must say. But first of all, how do we explain this phenomenon? How do we persuade Christians to get on board and become activists against anti-Semitism?
Well, what has been shocking to me, Gary, is that we're going on almost like 2.5 years since October 7th, when the whole world should have come to the rescue of Israel and say, what happened to you was tragic, and we are on your side. That lasted about 2 or 3 days, and then immediately after that started to point the finger at Israel committing genocide in Gaza. And you know the rest of the story. It's gotten so out of hand. What has really saddened me, and I think it's very concerning, is the lack, again, going back to the normalization, the lack of interest, the lack of commitment from churches. I know so many people that reach out to me on the different platforms and on our website at shalomandmessiah.com. And they say, Olivier, my church has not prayed once for Israel since the war. My pastor hasn't said a word about the war. They don't want to get involved. They don't want to because it's too political. It's so pastors and churches don't want to get involved. And a lot of people in the pews are in line with what their pastors are teaching. A few people say, like, this is not right. I tell people all the time, and this is going to sound pretty drastic, and I'm probably going to get some criticism for that. If your church has not prayed for Israel since the war, or has not of October 7, 2023, or has not mentioned what's going on and the need to pray for Israel and the Jewish people, it is time to find a new church, which, by the way, they're hard to find. And the reason why is because I'm convinced, and I'd like your opinion on that, Gary, I am convinced that the final dividing factor in the church before the return of Yeshua, of Jesus, is going to be our position on Israel, those who support Israel and those who reject Israel.
Wow. Well, Olivier, for many years, I pastored a Bible church. And I've got to tell you that our church did pray for national Israel, and we had Israeli speakers come to the church as often as possible.
I'm not surprised. I know you. I'm not surprised.
And I think other churches should follow suit. To me, it's maybe the most important thing going on today in spiritual warfare.
I agree. And I have for the last 7 years, and I think I've mentioned that on a previous show on Prophecy Watchers, but for the last 7 years, I have uh, gathered like-minded Christians on a private, secure network that we affectionately call the Underground Railroad for Jews. And it's a place where Christians say, hey, you know what? My house is available. I want to rescue and shelter Jewish people. If it's needed, count me in. So if you're watching this program and if you want to be part of that, if you visit our website at shalomandmessiah.com and you go to connect, there'll be a line that says, tell me more about the network that Olivier spoke about. Click that. That will start a vetting process that will get you in the network so that when we need people to rescue and shelter Jews, when it's getting worse, and it's going to get worse, it's promised in the Bible. And that's before the tribulation, before the rapture. After the rapture, it's out of my hands. But until the rapture, we have a mandate to bless the Jews and not curse them. And that's one way we can do it.
Well, I want you to comment on something else. There is a very simple biblical truth, runs all the way through the Bible, and that is that Satan hates the Jews, and by extension, he hates Israel, and by extension, he hates the prophecies of the Bible that speak of a national Israel and a rebuilt temple. He hates all these things. And I think we need to teach our fellow Christians about how to deal with that, or how to integrate that simple truth into their own thinking.
Well, he hates the Jews because he knows, again, like I mentioned earlier, he knows the end of the story. The Jews are very instrumental in the second coming of the Messiah, which means the end of his career, and he tried to stop the first coming of the Messiah. You go back to Genesis 6 when he tried to corrupt the human race so that Messiah would not be able to come through a pure, simply through the human race. And all throughout the Bible until the crucifixion, he tried to, you see Yeshua being tempted in the wilderness, and all those things that happened that were attempted by Satan at making the first coming, stopping him from coming in the first time, and then in disqualifying him as Messiah. But of course, God is greater than Satan by a long shot. And we hear people in the church, they don't really understand the demonic aspect of anti-Semitism. But I like to remind Christian, when I look at Psalm 83, and we're not going to go into the whole Psalm, but there's a key verse here in the beginning, when Asaph, who wrote the psalm, is pleading with God. In the first few verses at the beginning of the psalm, "O God, do not remain at rest and do not be silent. And O God, do not be quiet. For behold, your enemies roar, and those who hate you have lifted up their heads. They make shrewd plans against your people," that's Israel, the Jewish people, "and conspire together against your treasured ones. They have said, come and let us wipe them out as a nation, that the name of Israel be remembered no more. For they have conspired together with one heart. Against you they cut a covenant." If you're Christian, and if you think you can ignore anti-Semitism, look the other way, not be involved, or maybe you say, well, I'm not anti-Semitic, but I'm anti-Zionist, or, it's different. I've got news for you. If you hate the Jews, the Bible says that you, by proxy, you hate the God of Israel. They have conspired against you. Against you, they make a covenant. The Bible tells you when you conspire against against the people of God, the chosen people, the apple of his eye, Zechariah 2:8, you conspire against God. You hurt the one who loves Israel. So you cannot say you love God and ignore the Jews or hate the Jews, even worse. That's very important.
Olivier, as we sort of come down to a close here, I'd like for you to plug your book, your upcoming book, because I have read the other two books that you have out, and I've got to say they are easy to read. You have a great writing style, and the subject is incredibly important.
Well, thank you. This book, Antisemitism in the End Times, How the Rise of the World's Oldest Hatred is Paving the Way for Messiah's Return. And there's a connection there. Of course, we've mentioned that on the show. This is a book that's coming in on October 7th on purpose. The book is really it's a major update on this one. This one has a lot of good information in it, but it stopped when I got it published, which was, I believe, in 2018. And so this one stops at the end of 2017. We're looking at this one picking up to take us all the way to 2020, the end of 2024. So you're looking at an extra 7 years. This includes everything that happened since, including October 7th, and how really the events of October 7th, 2023 are more than just changing the dynamics in the Middle East. It changed the world, and it changed the way the world looks at the Jews today. And that's basically pushing things into motion for the end times and the final chapter of the world turning against the Jews, as I referred to earlier, Zechariah 12:3. So I would say this has about at least 30% new information based on the previous book. So this is going to be, if you have the first one, you're going to want to get this one because it covers a lot more new information.
We study and preach end time Bible patterns, shall we say. And we've been doing this for years. And I'm seeing a great excitement among Christians who follow prophecy. Certainly they're dismayed by what's happening to Israel, but they're saying, on the other hand, I knew this was coming all along because the Bible more or less predicts it, and of the wars of the end times and the great events that are scheduled in the near future concerning Israel. So today, in these days, prophecy teachers are very excited. I've got to tell you, I get many, many midnight phone calls quoting Bible verses to me. Gary, have you seen this verse? This is happening in Israel right now. And I there's this kind of an excitement. Do you feel that in these days?
Oh, absolutely. I'm excited to live in at the times that we live in, and another great Bible teacher, Jan Markell, said recently. She said, the world is not falling apart; it's coming together." And that is so true for people like us who study the Bible, who take it literally, who take it seriously, who are prophecy, to quote a ministry that we both know, who are prophecy watchers. We are we are very excited about this. I would say, and I'm very conservative in my approach to prophecy, but I would say we can count right now on at least 2 prophecies being fulfilled as we speak. You and I right now, 2 prophecies are guaranteed 100% of being fulfilled as we speak. Number one is Ezekiel 36, where the Jews are coming back from the diaspora, the dispersion, in unbelief, in preparation for Ezekiel 37, the Valley of Dry Bones, the regathering of the Jews in preparation for the new heart that God is going to give them. And so the coming of the Jews into the land of Israel in unbelief. Some are believers, but not the majority by a long shot. That's a prophecy being fulfilled. And again, one that is being fulfilled on a daily basis right now, and incrementally worse, is Zechariah 12:3, the whole world going after Jerusalem, the whole world turning on the Jews. We're seeing it every day. It's increasing. It's getting worse, and that is why it's so critical for Christians to have skin in the game, to get involved, and to speak up, and to come to the defense of the Jewish community, because that is going to not only be instrumental is getting Jewish people protected and possibly saved from physical harm. But how do you get people saved spiritually if you don't first make sure they stay alive? So we have to make an effort to save Jewish people physically, so that we can show them, this is why I wanted you to be saved physically, because I want you to have eternal life in Yeshua, in Jesus, by giving your life to your Messiah, your Jewish Messiah, who came to die for me and for you and for the whole world, and he's coming back to establish his Messianic kingdom. You want to be on his side.
Well said, Olivier. And I'll be looking for that new book when it comes out. I've read your other two books. I'm going to read the third one. And I find them not only enlightening, but very encouraging because there is a way out. And God does love his people.
Amen.
Much of the Bible is built around that simple fact.
Right.
So it's been great talking with you, and may the Lord bless you and yours.
Thank you. Shalom and be blessed.
Amen.
Prophecy Watchers is a viewer-supported ministry made possible through the faithful support of friends like you. Your generosity helps us reach even more people with the message of Bible prophecy. You can give easily by visiting prophecywatchers.com.